Welcome back to another Classic Value video. Today, it's a dummy's guide to car finance. I know bugger all about this stuff, but luckily these two gentlemen know a fair bit. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Mike from Pioneer Finance. I'm Tom.
By the end of this video, you should hopefully get it. PCP, lease purchase, hire purchase with balloon, residuals, all of these terms that you hear thrown around. But what do they actually mean? And really, is car finance something for you? If my mum was watching this now, which she probably isn't, she would be shouting at the screen saying, Giles, don't buy something you can't afford. But the reality is today, a huge amount of people finance their cars. What are some of the numbers we're looking at?
Yeah, they certainly do. The numbers have increased dramatically over the last 15 years. If we go back to 2010, less than half, at 47% of people finance their cars. We're now looking at numbers over 80%, so over 3/4 of the people will finance their new vehicle in 2024 and 2025.
And when you talk to these guys, what are the reasons that they don't want to pay in cash? In reality, they want to pay a smaller chunk and then pay monthly and have that cash back with them. What are the reasons?
So it's all about the leverage and using the money in the most suitable way for that individual. So a lot of people may choose to invest it into their business, invest into property, in which case, but they still want to own that car that they've always dreamt of doing, and they work hard in order to earn that. So to own that, sorry. So they will use that money in certain ways, and then use finance rather than placing all their cash within one asset that it's likely depreciating. They use it in something that's appreciating, or to increase value within their businesses or their property portfolios, or whatever they want to use it for. And in which case, finance is very suitable for that individual.
Got you. So playing that back, you're saying if a car is going to cost them, X% a year, they're going to try and get a better return for that money elsewhere, rather than always putting it into that.
Exactly that.
The asset.
Yes.
Got you. Most people on the lens probably want to start high level. So first question for you gents is, what are the main ways to go and finance a car? Like, there are big three options to go and pick from. What are they?
Yeah, there are basically three main options. There is your classic PCP, which a lot of people would have heard of. If you walk into a car dealership, if you're buying a Series A class or something of the sort, that tends to be the product you'll be offered straight off. You then have another product, which is your hire purchase. Again, very traditional, has no deferred balloon payment. It's from purchase price all the way down to zero. And then you have a third product, which is really bespoke, which is a HP with balloon. That is very similar to a PCP in the way that it works, except we can use it for any age cars, whether you're buying a Porsche 997, a Ferrari 458, or even a Bentley blower. We can facilitate a balloon.
Okay, so whether you've got a blower or a 458, there is potentially a finance product for you guys to get into that car.
Yeah, there's a common misconception that any vehicle over 5 years old is a hire purchase where you pay, say it's a £100,000 car, you pay it down to zero, and that's the only option. But actually, there are other options. You can do a hire purchase with balloon, which does add a balloon or a residual payment at the end. And a bespoke broker like ourselves can work with you in order to be able to do that.
Awesome. Okay, let's work through those one by one then. So we've got PCP, we've got hire purchase, and hire purchase with balloon as our three main options. Should we start with PCP? How does that work? Do I pay a deposit? Are there monthly payments? Do I have to buy the car at the end? Is there a deposit up front? What's that first part of it like?
Sure, yeah, so traditional PCP would be usually a deposit up front. Most lenders like to see about 10%,
okay,
though that is flexible. Terms range from 2 to 4 years, and then you have a balloon payment, this guaranteed future value that sits at the end of the PCP. Traditionally, that attracts lower monthly payments, but you have got that balloon payment at the end. You do have multiple options with that balloon. You could refinance it, you can hand the keys back to the lender and walk away, or you can sell the car and settle it off.
Got you. And for the guys at home, a balloon is, in my understanding, is a balance of money that you haven't yet paid off on that car, and you've got some options at the end to go what you want to do with that. Is that right?
Exactly that.
Yeah, it's a deferred balloon payment to the end of the agreement.
And with the PCP, you were saying normally that value is guaranteed. So at the end of your, let's say, 3-year term, you're going to have 25 grand, say, left in that car. You know for sure, or can that change?
So the guaranteed future value is an estimate that the lender will use at the start of the agreement to predict where they believe that residual will be. So as long as you've set your annual mileage at the start, which we'll discuss with the individual client to ensure that it is accurate, and you've set a annual mileage, you'll have a residual that should be fairly accurate. If you find at the end that you get to that balloon payment and your vehicle is worth more than that, then the equity in between the residual payment and that is yours to keep if you sell the vehicle. If it's below that, the vehicle is in good condition, minus wear and tear, and you've stuck to your mileage, then you have the option to hand that vehicle back to the lender.
Got you. So you could get to a position at the end of a PCP and you've got that balloon payment that they thought it was going to be worth 25, or the remaining balance was 25, but actually the value's been stronger and it might be 30 or 35, and therefore you've got more equity than you anticipated.
Correct. So you could find that if you put a 10% deposit in and you get to the end and you find that the vehicle has now equity higher than the 10%, you can then sell the vehicle and take that value out.
Okay, and age of vehicles that PCPs work for, is there any time range that they are particularly good or not good for?
Yeah, PCP is traditionally, so for now, where we're now March 2025, so really you're looking at PCP of a 20 plate and younger. That's where it gets interesting, because that's where the PCP kind of becomes redundant and the HP with balloon steps in. The HP balloon, and this, as I said, this is where it gets interesting because we often get asked the question, I'm buying this Mercedes A-Class because I'm using a PCP and it's within my monthly budget. But they go, but actually my dream car is a Porsche 997. All of a sudden, when we look at this HP with balloon, the bespoke product, which is very similar to the PCP in the way that it works, that 997 then becomes much more accessible. Often the monthly payments are very similar, if not lower.
Is there a deposit I've got to pay up front?
So a hire purchase with balloon is typically and traditionally with a 10% as well. Most agreements will require some form of deposit, though we have lenders that don't need it, most of them do. So a hire purchase, typically a 10% deposit again. And on paper, they look very similar to a PCP. At the end, the main difference is it's not a guaranteed future value, so it's a balloon payment at the end. But we can add a balloon payment to any age vehicle.
So with a PCP, it has to be 5 years or older for the vehicle, but with a hire purchase with balloon, it could be any age, right?
Yeah, correct. We can add a balloon payment to a vehicle such as an Aston Martin DB5 or a Jaguar E-Type. Classic cars are certainly one we can add balloon payments to.
Okay, so PCP and hire purchase with balloon seem very similar on the surface, but a 10% deposit, give or take. Then we've got monthly payments. Tell me about the differences though between them.
So on paper, a PCP looks very similar to a hire purchase with balloon. You have the sale price, you have a 10% deposit, typically, or more, and then you have a balloon payment or guaranteed future value at the end. The difference between the two is that balloon payment or residual payment at the end isn't guaranteed on a hire purchase with balloon. On a PCP, you have the option to hand the vehicle back. On a hire purchase with balloon, you don't. Though there are multiple options that we can help you with in terms of refinancing that balloon payment or assisting you with selling that vehicle before you get to that balloon payment at the end.
So the hire purchase with balloon, you wouldn't have a guaranteed future value at the end, and you couldn't give the car back to the lender, but you do have options apart from that to own the rest of the car yourself or do other things.
Correct. There's so many options at the end, and actually a very common one is when we get to the balloon payment on a hire purchase with balloon, is to refinance that balloon payment, and you can add another balloon payment to that refinance. So we can continue to add balloons to these vehicles and assist you to keep that vehicle long term, to keep your monthly payments within what you need it to be.
So far we've gone through two. We've got PCP, 10% deposit give or take, monthly payments, and a guaranteed future value at the end. We've got a hire purchase with balloon, again 10% deposit, monthly payments generally a little bit lower on the monthlies, but you don't have that guaranteed future value at the end of the term. You mentioned hire purchase without the balloon as well. What's that?
Yeah, the hire purchase is traditional. It's been around for years, and it is very straightforward. It's you borrow an amount, and by the end of the agreement, you're at the point of zero, so you pay the entire agreement off. Traditionally, again, 10% deposit up front, 5-year term, or anywhere up to 5 years rather, and at the end, you don't owe anything to the lender. The car is yours.
Got you. So deposit up front, and then essentially it's like a repayment mortgage on your house. Essentially, paying off that balance. At the end of it, you owe nothing to the lender. So we've got PCP, hire purchase with balloon, hire purchase. Is there anything else, sort of key products people need to know about?
Yeah, so that covers all of the products, or the majority of the products that you'll come across on a day-to-day basis if you're financing a vehicle. There is quite a lot of talk around interest-only agreements at the moment. This is typically done on a hire purchase with balloon, and an interest-only is different to an interest-only mortgage. On a vehicle, this is when typically the amount you're borrowing equals the balloon payment, and you're just paying the interest in order to borrow that money. So as an example, a £100,000 car, you put £50,000 in, and a balloon payment was £50,000 after, say, 24 months. They're equal, so you're just paying the interest in order to have that vehicle. And that's a way of having very low monthly repayments. We do stress that is only recommended on vehicles that are slowly depreciating. But if you speak to one of our brokers, we will assist you with choosing which vehicle is perfect for that.
Just jump in on that. I mean, There's some great examples out there straight away for an interest only, something like Ferrari 458, Porsche GT models, 991 GT3s or GT3 RS, or even all the way back to classic cars. These work nicely for interest only.
And you say that because you traditionally want them to hold their value or even tick up in value. Is that the kind of cars that you would look at this for?
Yeah, and you certainly know about the values of the classic cars better than we probably do. So yeah, absolutely, you'll know which vehicles are best for that.
Of course, so hopefully now you understand what the main products are when it comes to car finance. The next question you probably got, how do I decide what's best for me? And generally with this stuff, some people are attracted to what's the lowest monthly payment. Although even I know, with my little knowledge, that's not always the best idea. Tell me more.
Yeah, so we've always focused on ensuring the customer can exit when they need to. You'll see quite traditionally that the initial quote will typically go for the lowest monthly payment possible. No, actually that's not always the best thing to do. Putting a realistic balloon payment on the end, if we're talking PCP or hire purchase with balloon, in order for you to keep up with any depreciation of the vehicle and to ensure that you can exit when you want to exit. And we'll work with you in order to be able to ensure that the monthly payment, though is within your budget, it is suitable and not unrealistic.
Mike's absolutely right. I mean, we work with you initially to work out what's most suitable for you, what you're looking to purchase. We do an initial fact find, and very quickly you'll be able to identify, based on the car and yourself, what is going to be the most suitable product for you. As Mike said, total flexibility, that's what we want to be able to give you. Lowest monthly payments, although they look really attractive, they look great, it's not always the most suitable product.
Mike, I want to touch on something you just said around exiting early, because one of the things people have is these terms are 2, 3, 4 years long, could vary. What if things go head over heels? My partner leaves me, I've got to sell my house, finances change, you need to leave early after a year, is that even an option?
Yeah, so depending on the agreement that you're in and depending on which lender you're with, you have the option to exit. We typically at the start try and identify an ideal situation where we put you in the best position at the point when you want to change it. However, unforeseeable circumstances do happen, as you mentioned, and we'll work with you and with the lender in order to be able to assist you with that throughout. We're not just at the start and we leave you with your agreement, we'll be with you throughout to assist you as of when we can.
So it is possible to get out, and I know you can't talk specifics because it varies, but the penalties aren't ridiculous, right?
It's very much lender to lender, case by case, but we'll work with you in that initial fact find, find out exactly what your objectives are, and make sure we're setting it up so you've got total flexibility.
So my girlfriend drives a Volkswagen Golf R. Myself, I've got an old 1972 Alfa Romeo. You guys are telling me two things. One, I could get finance on both, but two, the monthly payments wouldn't be wildly different.
You're absolutely right. We get asked that a lot. You know, we often have a conversation with someone that says, "I've got it, such as a Golf R, but my dream car is a Porsche 997, for example." They could be very, very similar on monthly payments, and that's purely down to the both products.
And does the residual value come into it in terms of, I would hope my Alfa holds its value better than the Golf R? Does that play a factor as well?
Yeah, it's absolutely something you should take into account. Something like the Golf R may well depreciate much quicker than the 997. So not only are you driving around in your dream car with a very similar monthly payment as you may have on the Golf R, but you may not lose as much money either. So
if you're sitting at home and you think, I can only really afford this, but I would love one of those, perhaps it's a little bit more expensive, you're saying if the residual value might be stronger, actually the relative cost might be quite comparable. Let's dive into classic cars a little bit as well. Most people obviously can't buy a classic car from a dealership, brand new anymore. How does that work? I'm buying a car, perhaps from an auction even, when I'm buying a classic car. Is it possible to get finance on a car at auction, or is that just a no-go?
Yeah, so we can certainly help with auction finance. What we typically suggest is if there's a vehicle that you've seen in auction that you're wanting to purchase, is it to arrange those funds before the final hammer. That means that you know you've got the funds available to be used, similar to a credit line, and you can then bid to the amount you're approved at, comfortably knowing that you've got the funds there when you need it.
And there's a whole load of auctions coming up in the next few weeks. I assume there's a bit of a lead time that you need to leave between getting in touch with you guys and having that credit available to you. Is that a month? Is that 3 months? Obviously it varies.
Yeah, we'll work as fast as we can. I appreciate you might see a car that ends in 24 hours and we've got to work pretty quickly. We ideally would like a few days, 72 hours, ideally, in order to be able to get the credit application in and get that decision. The longer the better. And that application or the agreement, the approval is typically accepted for 90 days. We will put a bit of caveat there, it can change every 30 days because residuals and values are always changing, but the acceptance is available for 90 days.
Of course, if you're seeing a car on an online auction platform this weekend, just make Tom and Mike work over the weekend and you can potentially get in the pot.
Thank you. We look forward to that.
You're very welcome, no worries at all. So I'm sure lots of you would like me would have seen the various adverts on TV for dealers advertising the finance arrangements for cars. If you're a customer, pros and cons, and please try and be as independent and non-biased as possible. Broker versus dealer, what's the best one to go with? What are you guys good for? What are they good for?
Yeah, so absolutely. The dealership finance is sometimes the best option. However, we offer a bespoke product that works with you throughout the process, before and after. And it depends on the vehicle you're buying and the agreement you're looking for. So dealer finance, yes, is actually very competitive, particularly on cars that are new or a couple of years older. However, when it becomes more challenging, a vehicle that is slightly higher value, something that is a classic vehicle, we can add bespoke terms to that that a dealership might not be able to.
To play that, like you're saying, sometimes dealers can be the right option, but also equally, particularly for those cars that are a little bit non-standard, higher value, perhaps the older classics, a broker can often give you a bit more options and therefore better value.
Yeah, correct, and it's all about comparison to see what your best option is out there. We don't charge a fee for our services.
Okay.
We earn commission from the lender, we get paid commission from the bank for introducing it. So there is no cost to the consumer to compare all their options.
With you, and you can do a bit of a hybrid, right, where if you're in a dealership looking to secure your next car, you don't have to use the dealer finance, you could use a broker even though you're buying from a dealer.
So we actually would recommend that is explore all your options, and a dealer won't unfairly penalise you for using external finance. And so we would always recommend that you compare. If you've had a dealer quote, speak to a broker and get that as well. Get a quote from them and then directly compare the two.
I've got two questions to end on, just to make sure these guys don't get a free ride. Potentially uncomfortable, but I think it's important we ask. First one's around negative equity. I see it, and you see those Instagram reels pop up where someone calls up and they're upside down in the car and they owe more on it than they've got equity within it. Do we have options, or are you up creek without a paddle?
Yeah, it's a painful situation for some people to be in, unfortunately, in a vehicle, and we've seen it a lot on electric cars recently, where the depreciation is quite rapid compared to the finance. And it goes back to that, setting the agreement up right in the first instance. So we'll work with you, as we mentioned previously, to ensure that we set the exit when you want to exit that agreement at the right time. And again, it goes back to making sure that the monthly payments aren't super low, that you're not keeping up with any depreciation. There isn't a quick and fast solution to negative equity, unfortunately. However, if anyone's in that situation, we'll work with you and help you with the next agreement to ensure that that is set up in a way that you avoid that situation moving forward.
Okay, so we've got rates here of 8% upwards when we're looking at a finance arrangement with you guys. If I've got good credit, which I have a very good credit score, which I look at every single month.
That's good.
My main thought would be, why don't I just go to a bank? Why don't I just go and get a personal loan and use that to go and fund my next car?
Yeah, personal loan sometimes is the best option, particularly on vehicles under 20,000. We find that personal loans are very competitive. But as we discussed, the bespoke options of adding balloon payments to vehicles is only really available on PCPs, hire purchase with balloons, as we discussed. So a personal loan can be the best option, but we'll help you identify what's the right thing for you.
Okay, so potentially for a lower value vehicle, personal loan could be a not silly decision to go down that route, but you've got more flexibility with what you guys can pull together.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we set an opening for this video. Hopefully you get it. This dummy's guide to car finance to help you guys understand what all of those terms mean. PCP, hire purchase with balloon, residual payments, guarantee future values. If you made it this far, we are hoping you get it. If you don't, and you've got a couple more questions, pop them down in the comments below and I'll rope in Mike and Tom to respond to as many as they possibly can. If you want to chat to you guys directly, what's the best way?
Yeah, the best ways are our website, which is pioneerfinance.co.uk, or via our Instagram, pioneer_finance. We'll be happy to help.
Otherwise, please do like and comment on this video and stay subscribed for plenty more videos to come.